Who knew that one of the MCU's best villains would owe his origin to a somewhat overlooked Marvel Netflix show from 2015? Does the rest of this show match up to the quality of its main antagonists? We'll talk about it. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and tell a friend if you haven't. And if you're new here, check out the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive into Jessica Jones Season 1. I honestly forgot how good this first season of Jessica Jones is. While I don't think it stacks up against the debut season of Daredevil, I still find it to be very, very enjoyable. There are a lot of parallels between these two shows. Both have interesting and complex heroes, both have extremely compelling and fleshed out villains, and both shows sport an engaging and thought-provoking narrative. All of these are aspects that I think sort of get lost in the shuffle with the other Netflix series that we'll discuss in later videos. I think most of the characters in this show work really well, specifically Jones and Kilgrave. Both characters suffered through traumatic childhoods. Both were subjected to experimentation that granted them gifts. And both outwardly deal with their trauma in different ways. Jessica chooses to deal with hers by turning to the bottle. She is cold and distant. She tends to insult people or act crudely toward them in the hopes that it will keep them at a distance for their own safety. She's a character that's already lost so much and doesn't want to lose anymore. Then there's Kilgrave, a villain who works so well because of his trauma. A horrible person, no doubt, due to all the things he compels his victims to do, but once his childhood is revealed, you really sympathize with him. You start to root for him halfway through this season because while you don't agree with his actions, you understand them. Not to mention his power set within this universe is so unique and fascinating. They utilize it so well throughout the season, as you never truly know if any one character in any one scene is authentic or just one of his pawns. I like a lot of the supporting cast too. Trish is great. She works as Jessica's best friend, constantly trying to lift her from her inner darkness. Even though she doesn't have any abilities herself, she's strong and never backs down from doing what she believes is right. Malcolm, serving the same sort of role, is also a great addition. Someone who, like Jessica, is haunted by the things that Kilgrave has forced him to do, and he falls into an endless pit of self-abuse through drugs. When Jessica pulls him out, he sees through her abrasive facade that she constantly displays and pulls the good out of her. I love the introduction of Luke Cage as well. While I'm not too familiar with these characters and their relationship in the comics, him and Jessica play well off each other. She gives him shit and he gives it right back. Two people lost, trying to escape the pain of their past, and they find each other. All of these characters help to push Jessica forward from this standoffish, reluctant, alcoholic, private eye to a selfless, courageous, resilient hero willing to open up and be vulnerable around those that she cares for. It's a great character arc. The only character I really didn't care for, and even in my initial viewing as well as my rewatch, is Simpson. There are two problems I have with this character. The first being, his story takes up way too much space in this show. And if you've seen my retrospective on Daredevil, you'll know my biggest roadblock with these Netflix series as a whole is that they're all about 3 episodes too long, and I think a lot of these seasons could be condensed. Some of the narratives tend to drag out a little bit, but I digress. I think Simpson's story is one of the aspects of the first season of Jessica Jones that really hinders the story and in turn forces the show to drag on more than it should. And I just don't find his story that interesting. I think it pulls us away from the main focus, and he's just sort of annoying anytime he's on screen. And whether it's the actor or the writing of this character, I just don't think this character comes across well at all. He's just a bad character all around. I would have been fine with him just being a cop that Jessica saved from Kilgrave's clutches, and then that would have been that. Of these two Marvel Netflix shows that I've done so far, I think Daredevil overall as a show is better, but that being said, I think the plot of Jessica Jones Season 1 at least is slightly more enjoyable. I think that has something to do with Kilgrave and the gifts that he possesses. Every interaction where he utilizes his powers it's terrifying and anxiety inducing, and yet sometimes sort of comical. You're always on the edge of your seat when he steps on screen, and that's a testament to David Tennant's performance. He chews up every bit of dialogue that comes out of his mouth. He's so charismatic and likable despite how much of a lunatic he is. And the other aspect that makes this season so engaging in terms of the narrative is this hard-boiled private eye style that embodies this show. Following Jessica and her allies around town as they uncover clues and solve mysteries, it's so much fun. There's also this air of unpredictability that goes along with this season, like when Kilgrave purchases Jessica's childhood home and she voluntarily moves in with him. Or when she reveals Kilgrave's parents and his mother attempts to murder him. You're always on your toes. Even in the end, the viewer, like Kilgrave, gets fooled into thinking that we may be headed to a cliffhanger-style conclusion, with Kilgrave inevitably making his escape, only to catch a case of whiplash, literally, when Jessica breaks his neck. The writing and the performances by Ritter and Tennant in Kilgrave's final moments, they're all so incredible. But the most fascinating piece of this season, to me at least, is the ambiguity of the choices that Jessica has to make along her way in her mission to stop Kilgrave. Like when she decides to move in with him, she shows him what being good looks like. She teaches him all these ways to just be decent. And when she turns on him, part of you is left thinking, did she make the right choice? Maybe had she kept trying to foster a more benevolent outlook for Kilgrave to resonate with, maybe he could have ultimately become something more, something better. Even when Jessica brings in his parents, had she done this in a less aggressive fashion under different circumstances, could they have changed him for the better? And that's what makes this season so compelling. Jessica Jones Season 1 is another great addition in the Netflix catalog of MCU projects. While it doesn't match the overall quality of Daredevil, it's still a very enjoyable watch, held up by its intricate and engrossing narrative and its electric performances, mainly from Krysten Ritter and David Tennant. I hope the Disney era of Marvel television can get back to crafting more series like these. A show with its own distinct attitude, style, and flavor. A show that isn't just another pit stop on the road to the next big crossover event, but a show that can stand on its own 2 feet and tell its own story that matters and that says something. One that makes the viewer ponder tough questions. That's what these shows could be, and that's what these shows deserve to be.